Hi, y'all. This is Charlotte Curtis, Head of Adult Services with the Livingston Parish Library. And this is another episode of Talking About Books. And today, I love books. And the library is always one of my very favorite places to be because I'm surrounded by books. But today, I wanted to bring you to another one of my very favorite places to be, Cavalier Books. And we're going to be talking about books with John Cavalier, the owner of Cavalier Books. So, John, thank you so much for letting us come and film this segment here in your beautiful, beautiful shop.
Absolutely.
And I urge everybody, if you've never been, it's right in the antique district in Denham Springs. He's got fabulous selections for kids. It's just a really, really fun place to be. So how long have you been here?
So actually 11 years, as of like 2 days ago, as a matter of fact.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah. So yeah, we signed our lease May 23rd, 2009. So
wow,
been here for a little while.
So you made it through the flood.
Yes. Yeah. Fortunately, our store here didn't flood,
Wow.
so that was fantastic. I have absolutely no clue what we would have done if the store itself flooded, because we were, of course, busy enough with our house. And
Sure.
everything. So, but yeah, very grateful that the store here is on high ground.
Well, since you own a bookstore, are you one of those people that have always loved books and reading?
Always, always, always. Yeah, my whole family has. It's been something that I grew up with. I've always just had as many books as I could have. We've always gone to the library. We've always gone to all the bookstores, and I was never wanting for books.
Well, I mentioned earlier you always have a wonderful selection of children's books. Was there a particular book that you remember that Mama or Dad or Grandma used to read to you, or just too many to mention?
No, I mean, there are a ton of books that I have that my mom still has at home that were my books as a kid. Home for a Bunny is one that that I remember as a kid, and I always sell here in the store. We always have it on hand. Katie No Pockets is another one that I remember from when I was a little kid. About a kangaroo that doesn't have a pouch.
Oh, wow.
And she she doesn't have a pouch, and she befriends like a carpenter that has a tool apron. Gives her tool apron, and then she has all sorts of different pockets. You can carry around all sorts of different critters. It's
That's
one of my favorite books.
That's fabulous. I have not seen that one. I'll have to
Yeah.
check that out. Okay, so you're sitting here, you've got a stack of books on your lap. Tell me about those.
Yeah, so one of the really fun things that we do here at the store is our job application. We have an extensive job application to weed out the book people from the non-book people. And one of the big things, one of my favorite parts to read on our application is we have an essay section where we invite the applicant to list 5 books that have most influenced their lives and to tell us how. And so these are actually my 5.
Really?
So, actually my 6, because I couldn't stop at 5.
We're English majors, right? We don't count. Okay. So.
But yeah, so I'll show you these, and these are some of the books that really had an influence on my life growing up and even into my adult life. But I'll share them with you. So the timeline of the United States in the 20th century. I actually bought this book at a Scholastic book fair at Southside Junior High when I was in probably 6th or 7th grade. I can't remember. But that book showed me everything. It's broken down into like pop culture, history, important figures, and I learned so many different historical concepts, important dates, important people, important ideas, that was kind of a launch pad for a million different directions for me. And I pulled it off the shelf last night because I knew we were doing this today, and I sat down and looked at it, and I enjoyed it just as much as when I was in junior high.
Oh, that's great.
And so yeah,
I know, I agree with you. If the book is engaging, it really doesn't have an age limit, because I love reading good children's fiction or young adult fiction. If it's a well-written book, it works for a variety of audiences.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the hardest things about kids' books is being simple without oversimplify,
Yes.
you know,
Well,
but
like
just
you
kind of
talked
getting it
about.
down to like an elegant little
The
nugget.
kangaroo.
Yeah.
It's fabulous because it works on so many different levels.
Yeah.
It's, sometimes you may have a disability or an obstacle, but there's a way to overcome it. So
Yeah.
that's a very positive thing.
Absolutely. And that book actually segues nicely into my next book, On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was in junior high, when reading this timeline of the 20th century, it mentions On the Road as being banned. And it was like the most risque book. And as a junior high kid, I'm like, what? You can
First,
ban?
what does risque mean?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You look that one up and then go, oh, how can I find this book?
I'm like,
right?
what? You can ban, people ban books? Like what? Like what's wrong with this book that I'm not supposed to read it? And so of course I'm like, I'm gonna read it. And so I got that when I was probably 16, 15, somewhere in that
Older,
age range.
yes.
Older. Read it all the way through, immediately flipped it back over and started reading it again.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing book. And that was just, for me, it kind of solidified the idea of, if everyone is saying this is so bad and I'm enjoying this so much, I'm getting so much out of this, like why, what, how, questioning that sort of mentality that would, find that acceptable to ban information and to ban a book. And so that blew my mind. I didn't catch on fire when I read it, so couldn't have been that bad. So that really blew my mind, and just the idea of the openness, and it really demonstrated for me how if you're at point A and you want to go to point B, and whatever you are, you just get up and go. And so that was absolutely formative. I read that in high school chemistry class when I was supposed to be doing my lessons.
Don't take that lesson. But I have to admit, I was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, as I said, that's how we wind up in the
I did okay in
lines.
chemistry. I still passed and everything. So. But yeah, so completely formative for me. And I read the rest of Jack Kerouac's books. I read a ton of other books that were featured in the timeline book that I mentioned before. Completely transformative for me. So yeah, next book up on my list was this one, the Nolo Press Legal Guide for Starting and Running a Small Business. I got it when I was in high school as well. It was, I was probably 17 at the time, maybe 16. I actually got it from Book Warehouse of Baton Rouge that used to be open in Florida, which I would later come to work at for a few years.
Really?
Yeah. And so that book, some friends and I, we had a little t-shirt business, and we were always trying to make a couple dollars, and I found it very fascinating and interesting, and I wanted to know how to do things and to do things properly. And so I remember going to Book Warehouse, finding that book on the shelf, getting it, and I read it 10 times back to back to back to back. And so even now, like the Nolo Press books are still really good, kind of primers for all kinds of different technical and legal business things.
That's great. Because, you get so much information from books.
Yeah.
And of course now we've got wonderful databases with the library that give you some of the same information for people that are trying to start small businesses. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I still like to get a book. I find books are interesting because they have, a thesis and then all the different thoughts around that idea from the author. And so I love having that nice little package where you can read it and get all of the ideas.
And then you're carrying on a conversation with somebody else. So.
But yeah. Okay. Next book up on my list was we're getting into college now. So
Whoa.
Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus.
I can never say that part.
And so I had to read that in my ethics class. And I actually had a poli-sci professor that was big into Camus. And so we talked about him a lot. And that had a big impact on my life because I really loved the justification for the existence of morality that comes through absurdist philosophy. And so, thinking about it, especially in pandemic times, with the actual myth of Sisyphus being he's condemned to roll a rock up a hill for all of eternity, only to have
As
it
soon
roll
as he gets
down.
to the top, right back down again.
And and so the last line in the book, or the last line in the essay is, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. And so it goes through to justify why we must imagine Sisyphus happy. But I try to think about that a lot whenever I feel like I hit my head against the wall, trying to get through the pandemic, or trying to pivot and trying to do new things.
But I know you've done something that we're doing at the library. We are providing curbside service because
Yes.
people can't come in the building, but we have books there. And I believe you're doing the same thing, aren't you?
Yeah, it's actually been interesting to see, we've had to do new things and we've had to learn new tricks. And what's really awesome is, even if the pandemic ended today, if there was a vaccine tomorrow, there are still things that we're totally going to keep doing. Curbside pickup for, for mom or dad that's getting off work and just needs to, pick up required reading or something like that. We've started using PayPal a lot more, so that we could just
So much
shoot
more
somebody a
convenient.
PayPal link, put it in a bag, get it ready for curbside pickup. So there are a lot of little things like that that we're doing because of the pandemic, but they're also just, they're good business practices. They're convenient for the customer, they're convenient for us, and so we'll definitely continue along with
So
this.
things evolve.
Things evolve, they change, yeah.
What's up next?
Community, The Structure of Belonging by Peter Block.
Huh.
So that's an awesome book. I actually read that one after our flood in 2016. So whenever anything happens, I always go on like a big reading spree to try to gain some sort of understanding. And so after the flood, I read a ton of books about community, about community identity, community sustainability, local politics, and just kind of how we operate and how we exist with each other. And that one's definitely my favorite. It's all about how small groups are what makes the biggest difference in our lives, and how you can start with an idea and then go to a buddy and change whatever needs to be changed, so that you can think about things in a structural way to not just daydream about what needs to be fixed or what needs to be improved around you, but you could actually take steps to fix it.
Affect the change.
Yeah.
Good deal.
So I love that one. And then this one, I don't remember when I got this.
Strengths Finder.
Strengths Finder.
Oh.
And so this is a, I think it's like a 150 question quiz that you take
Oh, to find out your strengths.
to gauge your strengths. And the thing that I found really interesting with this is being in business with my wife, we know each other better than we know ourselves in some respects, but then your relationship is always growing and evolving and changing, and you're always learning. I found that really interesting because it gave us sort of a vocabulary to work with each other better, so that our professional relationship could be better, because I had a better understanding of why she wanted to do things the way she wanted to do them, and she would have a better understanding of why I would want to do them that way. And the book's all about how we're influenced by the things we're good at.
Sure.
And so having a better understanding of that is just kind of fundamental and foundational to growing from it.
That's intriguing.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my top 6. Top 6 books that have most influenced my life.
I love that. I really like looking at the way that it evolved
Yeah.
as you grew up. But you could also see the common theme, because it's obvious from a pretty early age you were thinking like an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think, doing Strengths Finder later, like more recently in my life, I think that's kind of what, it underlines all the talents that I have, and they kind of center around like problem solving. And that's the thing that I really enjoy about operating the bookstore. I enjoy sharing books with folks, because I obviously have a personal relationship with books that is very important to me, and I love sharing that with people, but I also just love the problem solving aspect. So, thinking about, not that I'm relishing our pandemic time now, but it has been it's been rewarding in some respects where there's a challenge and I have to rise to meet that challenge.
The first thing I saw when I walked in was the wonderful wall of jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
Because I know that those are very popular
Yeah.
during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been strange. What's really funny about puzzles is, so we had just stocked up for our book fair season, and so we were getting ready to go into, a dozen schools and, sell through inventory. And before book fair season started, I made the comment to my wife, Michelle, I said, oh my God, we have way too many puzzles.
Oh no.
And then book fair season got canceled and the pandemic happened, and it's like, oh, we don't have enough puzzles.
And by the way, if you have some of those puzzles and you're wondering what you can do with them because you've worked them and you're finished, there's going to be a wonderful library craft showing you how you can transform those puzzle pieces into a beautiful picture frame. So please check out our craft videos, and you can upcycle your jigsaw puzzles and have a beautiful frame. Well, John, thank you so much for allowing us to come into your wonderful store, and it's just been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, you as well. It's been great. Come by anytime, and we can do this without the cameras.
Oh, yes. Okay, great. All right, virtual handshake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Elbows.
Okay. All right, Charlotte Curtis signing off. Thank you again so much for joining us for this session of Talking About Books.